My parents, brother, and SIL showed up to Christmas at my house when they knew they were unwelcome. I was trying to keep things to 2 posts, but I realized while compiling everything that part 2 was just too damn long. So I've divided it into a part 3. For those who commented en masse to get cameras, I will, when I can afford it. I'm still in financial recovery from buying a house last year, and as far as I know, good cameras need a decent computer to record to. And I don't have anything more than a 3-year-old laptop that runs Windows 10. Yes, I am aware of doorbell cams. That will be the first kind I get. For those who kept saying that I should have just gotten my brother and SIL arrested, the only reason I didn't was because they are parents. Their kids need them. And if Dan was arrested, he'd likely lose his job. And without that, his family has no money. And SIL has an only months-old baby right now. Neither of them need to end up in jail. But you don't need jail for revenge. Police can help, yes. But I got payback without filing a police report. Would I be this merciful again? More than likely not. And they know it. I decided to wait on making an account and posting until after the new year, just in case more stuff happened. And it did. As previous readers know, my SIL was making passive-aggressive posts on social media that were obviously directed at me, especially after SIL had her 4th baby in November. She was posting the same repetitive nonsense over and over again. She just found semi-clever ways of rewording it. But she pretty much kept regurgitating that she was tired of living with my parents, that there isn't enough space, she needs her own house, blah blah blah. I know I sound dismissive, but live through what I have with these people, and you'd be ready to sarcastically play tiny violins in front of them too. They're just that bad. And since I waited until January to make an account, more happened just like I thought. I stated before that I'd invited half the family for a Christmas Eve party at my house. And everyone I invited all came, even though it was a fairly long drive of around 3 to 4 hours for them. But they wanted to come and show me their support. I was praised by them a lot for how hard I'd worked to get a house on my own, and that they were sorry for everything I'd went through. I was asked why I didn't just take my camper and drive the 3 hours back to them, instead of living pretty much homeless for so long. And I had to sheepishly admit that I was very attached to living around here, and I had my best employment opportunities in this area. My hometown doesn't have a lot of great job opportunities in my field, if any at all, and I wanted to make my own way as much as I could. An answer they overall accepted. We moved on to having a rather nice party, the best I'd been in years. Some relatives even brought CDs of great Christmas albums. And I have to say, the one my uncle brought of Ray Charles was my favorite. He sings Christmas songs like no one else I've heard. It was a grand and happy time. I felt like for once I could just forget my past issues and enjoy the moment. But I wouldn't be writing this if it had stayed that way. About 2 hours into the party, you know who showed up. My parents, brother, and SIL popped in trying to look all smiles. They didn't even knock. Just walked right in my front door like they were meant to be there. I shut off the music and told them to leave immediately. They begged to stay and said they brought gifts. One of my uncles stood up and yelled at them before I got another chance to speak. And he said they don't deserve to be in my home, or my life after the shit they tried to pull months earlier. And he was backed up by several other relatives. Mind you, this guy is my mother's brother, and he used to love her to pieces until he found out about the shit that went on between me and my parents. My grandparents, mother's parents, as old as they are, hurriedly got in between us and said to my parents that if they want to make amends with me, it's far too soon. And they've never been more disappointed in them than they were this past year. They'd hidden their favoritism for my brother from prying eyes for a long time, but no one was fooled anymore. And they needed to make a serious effort to try and actually treat me like a son if they ever wanted to be in my life again. Then they turned to Dan and SIL and said they've seen the repetitive nonsense SIL keeps posting about. They're tired of it, and to just let it go already. My house will not become their new home. SIL went back to her old standard of crying and had a pity party about how she should be the one living here and not me. She plopped down in a chair to have a tantrum and say it wasn't fair I got this house to myself when I have no family of my own, and she has 4 kids that need more space. and she just wanted a better place to live in and feel like a real mom. It was petty of me, but I loudly pointed out that she sucks as a mother because she lets my mother do most of the parenting while she sits on her, but all day drinking, playing on her phone, or going out and spending all of Dan's money. And she has the nerve to complain about it. I even joke that I'm surprised her baby doesn't get drunk from her breast milk since she drinks so much booze, which I admit went a bit too far as I got some stares. And SIL demanded to know if I was calling her a bad mom. I said the evidence speaks for itself, and if she wanted to be able to afford to move out of my parents' house someday, then she needs to put her college degree to some use, get a job, and learn to save money. My mother already does most of the childcare for my brother's kids anyway, so she'd have plenty of time after her baby gets a little older. My brother's eldest kid, who's 7 years old, ran up to start kicking and screaming at me for yelling at his mom. And he kept at me about how his mom said that I was the bad guy who made her cry and didn't let them live here. That's when my brother grabbed his son to pull him away. But all the other relatives jumped back in, and this sort of turned into a family intervention against my SIL and brother. She was crying. Her new baby was crying. Her kids were crying. Hell, even Dan was very nearly in tears from the verbal lashing he was being assaulted with. He ended up just sitting on the ottoman I keep shoes in by the front door and looking like a complete wreck. He couldn't look anyone in the eye. He couldn't even say 2 words to me. Not with a whole house filled with angry people ready to judge him if he tried to let out his inner golden child again. If they weren't there to get in his way, I'd bet this would have ended up a repeat of when he tried to order me around to try and take my house months earlier. By this point, though, he'd been so thoroughly humiliated that his and my parents' reputation in the family was completely destroyed because the masks were all now off now. Soon after, my parents, brother, and SIL all left in defeat. The party resumed, and we all avoided speaking of what just happened for the rest of the evening. Since most of the adults had been drinking, everyone stayed the night in my house. I even let some of them sleep in the camper so there'd be enough space. I admit, it also makes a good guest house. My relatives all wanted a tour of it earlier as well, and they said they couldn't believe I'd been living in it for around 2 years. I got a lot of questions about it, like what summer and winter was like, and so on. I was up earlier than everyone else Christmas morning and had a fresh pot of coffee and some ibuprofen for those spiked eggnog hangovers a few of them had. I was complimented on being a way nicer host than my parents ever were, and we all agreed to do this again next Christmas. After Christmas, SIL did finally stop making posts that were obvious digs at me, and deleted all of the old ones as well. But shortly after the new year, she more recently made a new post complaining about how she tried to convince my parents to get a camper like I did, so it could be set it up in the backyard so Dan and his family could use the whole house as their family home. Well, a taste of one's own medicine is never fun. Because my parents turned that idea down, vehemently I hear. No one is going to push them out of their own home, let alone their master bedroom. The post was only up for a couple of days before SIL removed it, and she has hardly posted anything since then. She loves to complain. But if a tree falls and no one is around to hear it, can it still complain? SIL, I guess, has realized there's no point in doing it when no one hears her anymore. And Dan can't afford to move his family out on his salary alone anytime soon. If they end up expecting another child in the next few years, I won't be surprised. Things mellowed down for me since then, and I've even invited friends over for a poker night. I suck at poker because I can never remember a damn thing about it. But so what? We get to drink beer and eat junk food while being merry idiots. We all loaded up on Whoppers from Burger King and just had at it the best way 4 grown men can when they just want to have a good unadulterated time and get pissed drunk. I think maybe around summer I'll look into possibly dating someone. I'm not exactly getting younger here. Fingers crossed that goes well. My camper just sits idle in my yard now. And I admit, there were some days I went out there just to spend time in it. I did live in it for 2 years. It's like my second home. And maybe one day I'll actually get to use it for camping, like it was meant to be. I've never been camping. My parents considered it a waste of time. So it'd be a completely new experience for me. This pretty much marks the end of what happened. My parents, brother, and SIL have all been staying very clear of me. In fact, they seem to have gone back to acting like I don't exist, like they did before I bought a house. Not like that bothers me at all. It's better that way. But they'll inevitably come back in some way. I know they will. I just wonder what kind of stupid thing they'll do next. If anything notable like all this ever happens again, I'll make another post if this account is still active. And now to the next story, story 2. Cousin wanted both the sign-on bonus and my referral bonus too. I, 36F, have never been very good at keeping most people around. I basically disowned my physically and emotionally abusive egg donor at the age of 10. I did the same with my neglectful drunk of a father when I was 14. I have had symptoms of social anxiety disorder since I was 3 or 4. I just don't really know how to connect with most people. My empathy levels are off the scale, however, especially when I do connect with someone or any animal/wildlife. I know now that some people find my kindness and sincerity to be off-putting. People have been so horrible to me, and I see so much horrible treatment throughout the world that I always give a compliment when one pops into my mind, and I work hard to be the queen of gift-giving. It is understandable that this can scare some people since I believe the only true monsters in this world are humans. There are most likely a lot of humans that have play-acted kindness and been looking to manipulate or do harm. I am not like that. I go into overdrive trying to help the people I care about when they tell me they are in a bad situation or are unhappy. A few years before COVID, during Thanksgiving, my cousin, F mid-20s at the time, let's call her Tony, was constantly complaining about how much she hated working as a caregiver, how little money she made, and how financially strapped she was. My family is mostly on the poverty scale. I think I only just barely broke out of that in the last 3 years. While my DH and I are still not in the best financial situation in the world, it is better than poverty. Anyways, I was working at a credit union at the time, and I offered to put my name down as her referral if she wanted to put her application in. The position was making over $4 more per hour than she was at her current position, and it came with a $500 sign-on bonus. I also took all honor roll and college credit English courses in high school, and my writing skills are superb. So, I regularly offer to help my friends and loved ones with their resumes for free whenever they are applying for a job. I offered the same to Tony as we were discussing her applying to the credit union. I advised that I don't split referral bonuses, but that if she stayed long enough for me to get one, I would be happy to take her out to dinner. The referral bonus would have been $500, the same amount as the sign-on bonus. She seemed fine with it throughout dinner, and even seemed excited by the prospect of getting a different position. A few nights later, Tony texted me, asking if I would be willing to split a referral bonus with her. I advised, once again, that I don't split referral bonuses because we need the money too much. I also reiterated that I would be happy to take her to dinner if I got a referral bonus from her staying the required 90-day period. I had just started driving when I got her response, and I pulled over to read it. I was flooded with absolute fury when I read her text, "You're a selfish bitch, just like your mother." My entire family knows about me being abused as a child, and as much as I have tried Tony's whole lifetime to be a kind and good role model whenever I was around her, whenever she didn't get the response she was looking for from me, she would then go and use my hatred of my egg donor to try to hurt me by saying I am just like her and all the other horribleness. I told her, then and there, to lose my number because I will never be willing to try to help her with anything ever again. She texted me again and said that she and her mother would be getting me banned from future Thanksgiving dinners because of this. I reached out to my aunt, Tony's mother, let's call her TJ, and told her that I loved her, but I needed to know if she was a part of that threat. She told me that she was, that I was selfish, didn't know how to treat family, and that I should grow up. So, I decided to stop letting her walk all over me and treat me like shit every time her daughter has a temper tantrum, and torched that bridge by telling her that she could go K herself in a fire. I went into work the next day and informed my boss that I would like my name removed as a referral for Tony, and I did not want her application associated with me in any manner. My coworkers and management were astounded when they asked for the story. They stated, "We specifically provide a $500 sign-on bonus so that new hires won't ask for your $500 referral bonus." Why does she need your bonus too? The next year at Thanksgiving, my DH and I were fighting to get our car unstuck from the snow. Tony and her boyfriend came out onto my other aunt's, Sam's, porch and laughed and jeered at us the entire time. My sister was pissed off when she found out. She said I should have interrupted her dinner to get her help. Neither my sister nor I speak to either this cousin or aunt anymore. However, Tony had apparently created a fake FB account of one of my old friends and had found a message where I had told this guy who was bitching at me about my politics on a post that was explaining how Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Carol would actually have made more for that time frame than Americans getting paid minimum wage in today's world. I told him, I have an aunt who taught me to be a feminist, taught me true empathy for animals, and then one day, she became a conservative. She told me how she shouldn't have to pay taxes for children to go to public school, even though she went to public school, because she never had any children. I am honestly sick and tired of trying to explain to conservatives why they should care about other people. Tony sent a screenshot of that to Sam, and despite of all the birthdays I had shown up out of the blue to be close to her, to give her wonderful gifts, or to leave cute and loving chalk art on her driveway, well into adulthood, she told me to have the decency to leave her alone and wouldn't hear or read my apology for hurting her feelings. In all honesty, I didn't apologize for what I said, and I never will. I still believe and agree with my words from that post. However, I wish I could be honest with her about how shitty her politics are to the person she taught to always care about others, especially animals and bugs. It hurts that she now supports a party that wants to punish me for my religion and my sexuality, that she became a chumper, and that she was willing to cut me out of her life so easily, without any discussion. It also truly sucks that she is willing to continue to support that party despite how hard they made my grandparents' lives when it came to going to Canada for their life-saving medications. My grandma raised me from the age of 14 on, and she was absolutely my adored savior. Nowadays I have my sister, my DH, and his family. They are King amazing and so very loving, my best friend, and a few close co-workers in my life. Tony succeeded at getting me kicked out of Thanksgiving dinners, but I stand by my words and actions. There is a good chance the world will think that I am an asshole for all of this. However, that is what everyone told me when I left my egg donor's abusive household. That is what they told me when I moved out of my father's. My grandma was also verbally harassed by my entire family for taking me in. They thought I was a privileged little bitch just trying to get out of doing chores, even though they themselves called DCFS on my egg donor for her abuse, parentification of me, and treating me like her own personal slave maid. My grandma warned me during high school that TJ was not my friend, and I shouldn't fool myself, presumably because of all the horrible things she said about me, behind my back, to my grandma. I know my grandma was just trying to protect a broken child from even more harm, and I wish I had been smart enough to listen to her at that time. But yeah, I used to always wonder if anybody could ever love me, since the people who were supposed to love me most, my parents, obviously didn't. It took so very long for my DH to break through that persistent thought process of mine and teach me that I didn't have to continue to allow people like TJ to treat me so badly, because I didn't realize that I don't deserve to be treated like crap all the time by so-called family. I am amazingly lucky when it comes to the people I do have in my life. Quality over quantity, I guess. I am not very good at keeping most people around, and I have made plenty of mistakes in my life, but for this story, I stand completely by my behavior. My life is better and less stressful without toxic family members that constantly either treat me badly or make passive-aggressive remarks about how I have lived my life and disowning my parents. If you have a toxic family that makes you feel bad no matter how nice or good you are, try to think that you are worthy of better and strive for a different environment. This life has continually shown me that if you are depressed and you wonder if the world would be better without you, trust me, cut off the people whose words constantly hurt you, those who believe you are worthless, and change your environment. I know life is not always kind, and that may not always be an option, but definitely try. A content life is so much better than a life where you consistently want to end your existence because toxic people have convinced you that you are worthless. They are wrong. Be kind to your lifelong friend in the mirror. Look your friend in the eyes when you look in the mirror and say kind things in your mind. It has taken a long time, but I will attain self-love, and I recommend it for all. Have a lovely day.